Welcome to the Law, Your Money, and You. I'm Roberta Saphire, an attorney in Sharon.
And I'm Camille Barron, a financial coordinator, also here in Sharon. And Roberta, we are going to be talking today with someone who is just fascinating. This topic is one that we have spoken about before, and it's a new version of the old days when people used to bully each other in the schoolyard.
I'm going to get black and blue marks from that, you know. Very delicate.
So we have a guest today who's going to
Yes.
talk about the now version of bullying.
Well, not only the now version of bullying, but it's called MARC, Massachusetts Aggression Reduction Center. I think it's one of the kind in the country, or they're growing, and the only reason it's here and helping so many thousands and thousands of people is because of this one person, Elizabeth Englander. Thank you so much for coming. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself to start with?
Well, I'm a professor of psychology at Bridgewater University, and I run MARC there, which is the center you just referred to, and it's a center that uses faculty, staff, and students to bring services and research and programs and resources to the state of Massachusetts and to schools all around the country and internationally, too.
And what kind of services do you provide?
We work with schools in students. We have our students go work with the students in local schools. We do curricula for students. We do training for students. We do training for faculty. We help administration develop policy or procedures. We help people deal with situations. So we're local. So if a school in Massachusetts has a problem, they can just pick up the phone and call us, and we'll try to help them out.
Well, this is for bullying and cyberbullying.
That's
well,
right.
For instance, what do you do for kids in the lower grades? Say the kindergarten to 5th grade. That's probably where it all starts.
So you're right, and that's actually the most important work, is the K through 5 years. So let's say, for example, an elementary school calls us up, or they would contact us online usually, and they want to do some programming in their school. They have some concerns about some of the devices maybe the kids are using and how they're using them. And maybe they've gone online and they've read some of our research. And so they want to stay ahead of the curve. They want to make sure they don't have some of the problems that we found in elementary school kids.
Well, what do you mean devices that the kids are using?
I mean
Like
digital devices.
Oh,
So cell phones
iPads.
or mobile devices. I don't like to use the word phones because these devices are not really telephones. These are mobile computing devices. And so that's why I use that term. So a school might contact us, and we might do something such as we might send out some students to work with their students. Maybe we would work with their 3rd and 4th grades. And we would talk with the kids and lead a discussion and give them a little education about what's going on. Maybe we would go to the school and talk to the administration about what procedures they're using when kids are doing certain things, what kinds of policies they have. We might go to the school and train the faculty in how to intervene in problems, what they should look for, and how they need to respond. Or we might go in the evening and offer a evening through that school for the parents and the community groups.
And can you give us some examples of types of things? Obviously, we know that there's been some tragic cases nationally that we have all heard about with the cyberbullying, people committing suicide. But in a more general sense, what are some of the more common things that you notice at various levels, like elementary, middle school, and then high school?
Well, one of the things that's different between the different ages, and this isn't things that we just notice, these are things that we see in the research lab. So we have a very large ongoing study. It has about 50,000 children in it, nationwide, and in Canada. It's an international study, and we're following children aged 8 to 18.
Fantastic.
So we get great data from that, understanding what kids are doing online and with their digital devices and what they're doing in school as well. So we might look at that data and say, well, we see that some of the issues are, for example, that kids aren't getting enough education about how to use these devices. And out of ignorance, they're making mistakes that are causing social problems for them back in 4th grade in school. And so we would want to incorporate those kinds of research findings into a curricula and into a training program that schools could then use with the kids. So everything we do is very strongly research driven.
I see.
You know what's interesting is that people don't realize that it's not just in this little town. Like I went to Arizona, and in the grammar schools now they have about bullying is bad. So it's everywhere. And I just want to diverse, and maybe I'm not diversing, to Caitlin, who came from Hungary. Could you talk a little bit about her, because it shows that what's going on in the rest of the world, and that they came here to your center, how lucky we are to have you here and what you did. Tell us about her.
Well, I would say first that I do a lot of traveling, and I think Massachusetts is doing very well in this area. Even though we have still a lot of challenges, we're really making progress. And when I go to other places in the country, I realize how far out ahead of the pack we are. And Caitlin Party, who is a lawyer and a professor at the Institute of Criminology in Hungary, is being funded by the God, I'm having word problems.
Me too.
By the
same
Fulbright
one who
Foundation.
Oh, that's right.
By the
There we
Fulbright
go. That's right,
Foundation.
she's a Fulbright
And the
scholar.
Fulbright Foundation, that's right, the Fulbright Foundation
Meeting.
is funding her to come and study, spend a year studying all of our programs and our model in general, to see if it can be replicated in Hungary or in other places in Europe, not just Hungary.
Isn't that amazing?
And well, it's a very replicable model. It's very easy, really. There are universities everywhere, and so all you have to do is find a university, and it's always full of students who want to work with kids and in education, and it usually has some faculty members who are interested in these issues. So Caitlin has been spending a year with us. The year's almost up now. And she has been spending that year very intensively looking at all of the different programs that we do, not looking at the research programs so much, but looking at the programs that we actually do with kids and with educators, to see how well they sort of seem to stand up to evaluate them. We always did evaluation on our programs, but it's much more valid to have an outside person come and evaluate a program rather than to have the director of the center who wrote the program evaluate the program. It's much better to have an outside person.
So when you talk about aggression, obviously there's always been aggression, and there's always been issues in schools.
Yeah.
In the earlier days, it was not virtual. It was live. But do you find that most of the aggression that we see in the schools today is more on the internet rather than physical?
Every year that children are in school, the proportion that is digital increases.
Really?
And the proportion that is in person decreases every single year. Now, I can't speak for K through 2, but that trend I know starts in grade 3.
Really?
So when you look at the aggression that happens in grade 3, most of it is still happening in school, but a reasonable slice of it, like maybe a quarter of it or a little bit less, is happening in a digital realm. But every year that increases. By the time you get to middle school, about 2/3 of it is happening either digitally or both online and in school. By the time you get to high school, it's actually rare to find a social problem between kids that only happens in person.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah.
And for parents, is there any way to notice early warning signs that your child might be either an aggressor or someone who is a victim of one?
Yeah, I think there are. And one of the interesting things that we looked at this past year in the lab was we asked subjects about what their families' values reflected. Because families are different. Some families really emphasize achievement. Some really emphasize independence or strength. Some really emphasize religion. Some really emphasize being a good person or morality. And one of the findings, and some do sort of nothing. That's right. Or it's kind of a mix, One of the things we found was that kids who came from families where being a good person was very clearly the primary goal in life, where parents were very clear about that. That came before achievement and before being financially successful, before all those things. Those kids are not confused at all about values. They have a very clear vision in their head about what they're supposed to be. And so they're much less likely to engage in this. But having said that, I think that the number one thing for parents to remember really is actually something very non-technical and very old-fashioned, which is just to talk with their kids. Just talk with them about what are they doing socially, and what is their school like, and what are their friends like, and what do they see around them between other kids, and what are they doing online, and do they like it, and is it new? And are there problems on it? What do they think about all of this, fuss about cyber stuff? And I think that once you talk with your kids about these things that way, and it's kind of an ongoing conversation, then you're going to be able to have a handle on sort of what's going on. And if anything really bad happens, they know that you care because you brought this up, and so they'll come to you. Hopefully.
That's interesting. Now, do you have anything that's set up where the schools have mandatory classes? Like I noticed you have workshops too, but is there anything, or do you think it's coming to that? Like they have English, they have gym, do they have something about?
Well, one of the reasons Massachusetts is out ahead of the pack is that our state law mandates education about bullying and cyberbullying in K through 12. Every year. It mandates the teachers be trained. 2010.
Oh, so it really is low.
And we've been tracking rates since 2010, and things have gotten better since 2010. So the law does appear to have made an impact. So,
what kind of programs do they have?
The state law doesn't mandate any kind of program. It mandates that you're supposed to use a program that has some sort of evidence behind it, something. So it can't just be a program that Joe Schmo thought up at his kitchen table and feels in his heart will work, because even though those kinds of people are very motivated, we know that you have to have evidence that something's going to work. It's not reliable to just think, oh, I feel it in my heart.
When you do a program, do you do a model and say, well, let's try this program out, and then they watch it and study it, and then you go, this works?
That's exactly what we do. That's exactly, so we do what's called a pilot.
Oh, yeah.
We pilot the program, and when we pilot the program, so for example, with the curricula, the last program we rolled out was about a year ago, maybe 10 months ago, and it was a curriculum that schools could use during advisory periods. Now, I don't know if you know what advisory periods are, but advisory periods are now pretty much mandated throughout most states in the union, and there are periods of time between 5 and 40 minutes where kids spend in a small group with an advisor. It's kind of supposed to take the place of what homeroom used to be, where you had a teacher that you saw regularly all through your years of high school. That's kind of what the idea is. But the problem, most schools spend about 20 minutes, but they don't know what to do in that 20 minutes. They're not trained. Nobody's trained. They don't know what to do. So kids do their homework, or they just talk or something. So what we thought was, let's create a curriculum that they could use during that 20 minutes. So we created this curriculum, and then you do an advisory period, and you ask schools, you say, are you willing to pilot it? And a lot of schools know us by now, so we had lots of schools willing to pilot it for us. And so they piloted it, and they completed data before and after, and we pooled it all together and studied it to make sure.
Now, do you ever have any programs that say this is going to work and it works, and then this particular school is not working? Does
All
that ever
programs
happen?
are like that.
Really?
There's no such thing as a program that's going to work in every school in every circumstance with no exceptions.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So can you tell us typically, let's say just high school to start with, but what does a program often consist of? What is the actual delivery?
Yeah, yeah. Well, there are different types. So, for example, in a high school, you might have, we have something called the Cyber Skills Curriculum. So that's a curriculum. It has 10 lesson plans for grades 9 and 10, and it has 5 lesson plans for grades 11 and 12. And it comes in a PDF, and there might be videos that go with it online. And any teacher could use it in any classroom. You know, it's up to the school to implement it any way they like. Or they might have a situation where we send out a student to their school to talk to their 9th graders or 10th graders. Maybe the school just sort of wants the students to touch base about some issues, wants to put it on the front burner, you know. Those are called assemblies in schools, right? You've probably heard of them. Assemblies are not considered long-term impactful. They raise awareness, but they don't really change behavior. So you can't just do assemblies. By itself, that's not enough.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So then we also have a program for high schools called leadership, a peer leadership training program. And this is where a high school might choose, say, 25 kids who they feel have leadership qualities, not just the good kids. That's important. It has to be kids from every clique, or most of the cliques in school, but they should have some kind of leadership quality. And they bring them to the university, and my students spend the morning with them, training them. And what we do is we train them how to think about the problem. So we say to them, we're not going to tell you what the problems are in your high school. You're going to tell us. And you teach them how to sort of put it into words, you know, how to conceptualize things. And once the group of kids has put together what they think are the key issues that they believe are most important, then we turn around and say to them, okay, so now what are you going to do about it?
Are they always the same issues?
Yeah.
You know, like
They
there's
think they're
always the
not.
same
What are they?
personality?
They think it's always something unique, and it's never unique. It's always the same issues. There's always an issue around rumors and gossip. Always. There's always an issue around prejudice, bias, discrimination, racism, sexism, something along those lines. Always.
Boy.
There's always an issue about how the adults make things worse. Always. There's always an issue.
That's funny.
There's always an issue about how stuff happens online and kids don't understand it when it's happening, and it makes everything worse once they get back into school. And something around those 4 and a few more topics that reliably come up. You know, school after school after school after school.
So what can be part of a program to try to address these things? Some of the issues, there must be some similarities in the elements, at least, of the programs that are effective.
Well, sometimes the kids, when we turn around and say to the kids, okay, so now you've said that, say, rumors and gossip and, say, sexism, you think are the worst problems in your school. So what are you going to do about it? And we teach them how to be creative and how to brainstorm and how to come up with something they want to do. And then you teach them how to plan it and put it together and think about it. And by the time they leave that training and they go back to their school the next day, and their supervisor has to come with them, by the way, from the school. The supervisor has to be trained with them. They have a plan. They know exactly what they're going to do. And they go back to the school and they implement the plan. And now they have a bullying prevention or a cyberbullying prevention program that is being run by the students for the students, doing what the students think is important. And no matter what it's about, it's going to be much more powerful than anything any adult comes up with.
Well, we're doing a pilot for financial literacy for the schools, and we feel this is really, they're listening, or the schools are listening now because it's initiated by the students.
That's right.
That's the difference. Someone said to me that
That's
they
right.
couldn't.
It's got to be the kids.
It's them who
we
want
use
it.
what
They
we
have
call
to
the
want it.
high status peer model, which means that you want to take peers who have a slightly higher status than the kids themselves, and that's the most powerful educator. In our case, they're coming to the university, and we have university students in the center who we train. They take the center for credit as a class. They get trained, and they're the high status peers.
And they probably listen to them because they're moved down to their age
That's
level.
right. That's right.
You know, it's funny. I keep thinking about this. I was in my 40s before I realized that it wasn't always my mother. I had this poem, something, something, something's my name, whatever it is, my mother's to blame. And when I was in my 40s, I realized, well, it wasn't, you know, she wasn't maybe that bad. You know, she's worse. But that is so fascinating. I have a whole list of
I just want to mention
more.
we had
Be here for 20 hours. What?
we had some guests on. Actually, was it maybe a year ago now? That they have a program called Screen Retriever, and it goes on to the kids. Mostly right now, I think they're working on an application for the devices, the phone devices, but it actually will record the screenshots of where their kids have been on the internet, and it's not done as a secret. The kids know.
Right,
They
right,
agree
They
to it.
see
and
this
I know
little
it.
golden
And,
retriever or something.
Yeah.
So it's a tool that helps the parents
works.
to monitor it.
That can definitely
Yeah.
help parents, particularly the younger kids. But you know, ultimately, what you have to do is give kids the tools they need, because there's always going to be new programs and new issues and new ways to get around. But the good news is that there are some things that consistently happen across different apps and different websites, and once you sort of know those, then you're prepared for anything that kind of comes down the pike.
Speaking of apps, you've got to be kidding. This is how you've got to be kidding time. But what I want to do is still go on this, because what we haven't even mentioned is on your website, and if you could tell them the website, and if anybody has any questions, how to get a hold of you.
Sure.
I notice that there's a bunch of like pamphlets, a dozen or so, a lot of them, that you can download.
Right.
Can we finish off? You know, say you've got to be kidding.
Yeah, you got to be kidding.
No, I mean, I'm looking at it, I'm going, you've got to be kidding. All these informational booklets,
Yeah.
and you can't even touch on it. You can't even touch on
the
it.
website is markcenter.org, and everything on our website that's downloadable is free. Just don't call us up and ask for lots of paper copies. We don't do that. But everything that's there is downloadable, and all of our contact information is there. People can send us a message through the website.
What are some of the names of them?
Of the things for parents?
No, that you download. What are they, for parents, for students?
Well, we have
or-
research papers, we have all the curricula, we have lots of examples of things, of some of the lesson plans. We have downloads for parents, things like understanding social media use and cyberbullying, and what to do when your child comes home and says, I'm being bullied at school. What do you actually do at that point? Because there are good things to do and there are not such good things to do, and it's good to know the difference. So things like that, there's really a lot. We have games, we have a Jeopardy game that teachers use. We have another cyberbullying game. We have, there's a lot of stuff on there.
It sounds very creative.
We try to be creative.
And did you write all of them?
Not all of them. I wrote most of them. I didn't
Yeah,
write the
I
Jeopardy
bet.
game, but I wrote, or the cyberbullying game. I wrote the curricula, and I wrote or co-wrote most of the papers that are up there. I wrote all the research reports, and I wrote all the parent materials.
Now, do you have like certain helpers, assistants that you feel like, oh, I couldn't do this without them?
Well, I couldn't do as much without them. I could do it, but I couldn't do as much. And in fact, I mean, when the center started, it was just me and 10 undergrads. That was all that it was.
How long ago was that?
That was about 10 years ago, this fall.
And
This
tell
coming
me,
fall.
what motivated you to start this?
Oh, what a good question.
What motivated me to start it, first of all, was that this fellowship opportunity crossed my desk. And I thought about it, and I was getting so many questions. I had already, I was already working a lot with the public just because of the nature of my research. And so I was getting so many requests and questions and things like that, that I thought, well, this is what people really need. And I liked the idea because I really wanted to, I didn't want to just create another program that was sold to schools. I really wanted to create something that benefited the students at the university and taught them. These are all students going into these fields. But at the same time, let schools have a local resource that they could pick up the phone and call if they had any questions or issues, and that they didn't have to pay for.
Now,
And that was very important.
How did it end up at Bridgewater State?
That's where I was when I applied for the
Oh, you
fellowship.
applied
So,
there.
yeah.
Oh, you've got to be kidding.
No,
I just had
no.
to say that.
No, that's where I was.
Isn't that funny? Now, how many are in your staff now? And then I'm going to say you've got to be
Now I
kidding.
have 4 graduate assistants, a program coordinator, 30 undergraduates, and 2 office staff.
Excellent.
Oh,
And we still
boy.
can't keep up.
No, really?
We can't keep up.
How
Yeah.
widespread is the program?
We do direct programming with between about 200 to 250 schools a year, and the curricula are used by I honestly don't even know how
And
many.
it's not just in Massachusetts, all
No,
over the
they're
country.
all over. We just
Is it all
sent
over-
the
is it-
curricula to Egypt to a bunch of schools.
All
in
over the
Egypt.
world.
Yeah,
All
all
over
over.
the world.
Yeah.
Isn't that something?
That is
People
fascinating.
don't think that it's all over the world,
Yeah.
but it is.
That's
And-
because Massachusetts is in the name, so people
Oh,
think we're
yeah.
just local.
They
but
figure
yeah.
if they can spell
No,
it,
that
then
is
they
what
got
an
it.
accomplishment.
That is fantastic.
have
We're
it be
trying to help
worldwide.
other states open up similar centers, because really we have to get the money out of this equation, because the way it is right now, if you're a school and you don't have the funds, your kids don't get the programs.
Oh,
And that's just not
good.
gonna work
Well,
anymore.
hopefully through programs like ours and everything, we can spread the word and spread the interest. And to wind up, do you want to just give that website one more time?
MARCcenter.org.
Oh, that's
And
an
that's
easy one.
MARC.
Massachusetts Aggression.
CENTER.
So there's 2
dot-
C's.
2 C's.
Center.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 C's.
Yes, it's amazing how just one person has one idea,
Yeah.
and it's like, you know, you light a candle, and the next person
Yeah,
lights the candle,
yeah,
and
that-
it's amazing that it's all over the world, that you have reached people
Yeah.
all over the world.
Well,
That's
Thank you.
fantastic. It's an
Yeah, no,
admirable,
really,
admirable
I mean,
quality.
It's really exciting, and if anybody goes to the website, your mind will be blown away by everything
I don't think we
on
should
there.
inflate their expectations too
Oh
much.
no! I mean that's
But there's a lot on there.
that's really, I mean, the stuff that they can download. I mean, just if they read it, common mistakes, and they'll see. Oh, my kids. It's usually the little kid gets picked on, but then when he gets bigger, he picks on.
Oh, you hear so
And that's
much
not
about
true anymore anyway. It's not related to physical body size the way it used to be.
Oh, because
Really?
they,
because it's not
Because it's
physical anymore.
psychological, right? It's not physical
That's it.
anymore.
Well,
Yeah.
well, that's a wrap.
Yes.
We call that a wrap. This is great. Okay, thank you so much again. And Camille always ends the show. And we asked you to come because we got such feedback from the other one, and it's such a hot topic. And hopefully it'll be really under control all over the world.
Excellent. We just hope it spreads like wildfire.
I know. I'm just sorry Catalin's going back to Hungary. She's been fantastic. I wish I could keep her.
I know somebody who goes out with her. He's going to be sorry too, unless he follows her. Unless he follows her.
Well,
Brilliant
we're going
girl.
to try to see if we can get her back somehow, but I don't know who's going to fund it. I don't think Fulbright will again. They got their year. You know, that's what they wanted. So.
Well, send
Well,
your
we-
money
we-
and everything.
Thank you so
Okay,
much.
yeah.
This is just, I just can't compliment you enough for all the good that you are doing
Thank you.
for many, many people. And to our viewers, we encourage you that if you have children, or even if you're a school-age child yourself and you'd like more information, either go to the website or just send us an email. Go to thelawyermoneyandYou.com and send us an email, and we'll be happy to share the information with you and put you in touch with the program. And once again, we ask you to please continue to let us know what you're interested in, what you'd like to see and hear on our show, because that's where our ideas come from.
you.
Because remember, this is your show, the law, your money, and you.